Good afternoon. It is September 9th, 2022. Hope everybody had a great Labor Day. Now summer, for all intents and purposes, is over now. We're starting to head into fall. My name's Stephen Herwire. I am the owner of Herwire Financial, Plans with Direction. First, a couple of pages of important disclosures. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical. It's not a guarantee of future results. All data is believed to be from reliable sources. However, no representation is made as to its completeness or accuracy. None of this should be construed as tax, legal, or financial advice. Consult your advisor because they know your situation prior to taking any action. A few more disclosures because we're going to be talking about insurance. This material contains only general descriptions. It's not a solicitation to sell any insurance product or security, nor is intended as financial or tax advice. For information about specific insurance needs or situation, contact your insurance agent. This article is intended to assist in educating you about insurance generally and not to provide personal service. It may not take into account your personal characteristics such as budgets, assets, risk tolerance, family situation, or activities, which may affect the type of insurance that would be right for you. In addition, state insurance laws and insurance underwriting rules may affect available coverage and its costs. Guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing company. If you need more information or would like personal advice, you should contact an insurance professional. For the record, I am an insurance professional. You may also visit your state's insurance department for more information. Riders are additional guarantee options that are available to an annuity or life insurance contract holder. While some riders are part of an existing contract, others may carry additional fees, charges, and restrictions, and the policyholder should review their contract carefully before purchasing. Guarantees are based on the claims paying abilities of the issuing insurance company. Let's talk about last night's numbers. Dow Jones Industrial Average closed at 31,774.52. Year to date, it's down over 12.5%. The S&P 500 closed at 4,006.18. Year to date, it's down almost 16%. The NASDAQ 100 down to 12,321.19. Year to date, it's down a whopping 24.5%. Gold is down at $1,707.59 per ounce, down 6.64% for the year. Bitcoin index. This is the real painful one for those who bought at the beginning of the year. 19,229.33. Year to date, it's down 59.86%. US dollar index. It's at 109.64. Year to date, it's up 14.6%. The 10-year Treasury, you can now get 3.26% on the 10-year Treasury. It's up 1.75% from its year start at 1.51%. And the S&P Aggregate Bond Index, for you folks in the quarry industry, this is not gravel I'm talking about. It is down to 198.15, down 10 2/3%, give or take. Okay, today we're going to be talking about life insurance. First of all, what is it used for? Why have it? It's primarily used to transfer the financial risk involved in death to an insurance company. That means when somebody dies, those who would be financially affected receive money. So if the breadwinner in a family dies, monies are available to make up for part or maybe all of the loss. Another example is if you've got a key person at a corporation and they die, it gives the corporation money to tide the company over while they look for that person's replacement. In times past, and still to a limited extent today, it can be used to pay estate and inheritance taxes. Right now, the levels for those are pretty high, so doesn't come into play a whole lot, but that could always change. It can be used as a cash accumulation vehicle with a death benefit. You can accumulate cash frequently in a tax-favored status. Don't take that as tax advice. Talk to your CPA. Your insurance agent can explain how that works, but confirm with your accountant. And it can also be set up to provide for long-term care needs. Now, for those who don't know what long-term care means, it means as you get older, sometimes you get to the point where you can't take care of yourself. Sometimes you don't even have to get older. This can be set up to pay for that, or part of it. Okay, two basic types of life insurance, temporary and permanent. Temporary is also known as term insurance. Permanent has a variety of types, but the only two we're going to touch on today are whole life and universal life. Term has no cash component, and permanent generally does have a cash component. By the way, like with all my webinars, there's a lot of generalization here, and there's a lot of omitted detail. Consult your insurance agent or licensed professional for more information about your specific situation. Now let's talk about term insurance. Generally speaking, it is the lowest monthly cost of any of the types of insurance, all other things being equal. I compare it to renting an apartment. Renting an apartment, generally speaking, is less expensive than buying a house. But when you stop paying the rent and you're out, you got basically nothing to show for it. So as long as you pay the premiums on a term policy, up to a point, coverage remains in force. But these premiums will go up periodically. Now, you on the outset of the policy, when you apply, you get to set the premium for a specified period of time. Now, the least monthly cost is almost always going to be the annual renewable term. Okay, the thing is, after a year, the price goes up. After another year, the price goes up. So it starts off really cheap, but gradually gets more expensive, and then at some point it starts to get expensive a lot quicker. So if you've got a specific need that you're only going to need the term insurance for a specific number of years, lots of folks will do it once they get kids, and then when their kids are grown or on their own, they don't need to replace income that was supporting these children. So you can get a 10 or a 20 or a 30-year level term premium. That means the price is locked in for that specific period of time. Now, if you get a 10-year level term, it's going to be less expensive generally than a 30-year level term, because you're locking the price in for a shorter time on the 10 years. There's no cash component. These things are like homeowners insurance. If you never have a claim, there's no payout. And then some states, like New York, after a specific age, you just can't have it. So be aware of that before you buy. Permanent insurance. Most people, when they think permanent insurance, think whole life. Now, whole life is one of the varieties of permanent insurance, but it's not the only variety. Universal life is another type. Now, the whole life generally has the highest regular premium, and it's guaranteed by the insurance company and their claims paying ability to stay in force as long as the premium schedule is followed. It's not very flexible, but it won't change either. Universal life, much more flexible, and it'll generally stay in force longer than a term policy. It doesn't go away after a certain age, but unlike whole life, it's not guaranteed beyond a specific point in time. With universal life, you can skip payments. You can add payments up to a point. You don't want to add too much. Consult with your insurance agent to make sure, but you don't want to add too much, because it could become something called a modified endowment contract, which I'm not going to get into, which you may not want to have. Both types give you the possibility of adding a long-term care rider. Okay, a lot of people, when they go to work during their annual enrollment or the first time they sign up, they get offered life insurance. Sometimes the companies just give them the life insurance, a certain amount, usually one-time salary, and give them the option to buy more. This is usually a lot cheaper than anything an agent's going to offer you, but it has some disadvantages, which I'll get into. Sometimes the company will give you term policies. Sometimes they'll give you the opportunity to purchase into a universal life policy. And if they provide at their cost something over, and I believe the number is $50,000 worth of insurance, the surplus is considered taxable. Now, I'm not giving tax advice, but my recollection when I was in the workforce is that did not significantly affect my taxes. Check with your accountant to find out how it might affect you. And you can usually purchase more, usually it's up to a certain number of multiples of your salary. The one drawback is it usually goes away when you leave your employer. So if you change jobs, you might find yourself without life insurance. However, in some states, New York being one of them, they have a requirement that if you had insurance that you had purchased while you were working, if you tell them within 30 days of leaving your employment that you want to keep it on board, then they have to keep you covered. However, you're going to pay more for it, but there's not going to be underwriting. This is particularly useful as if you're leaving a job and you've got some bad health. Check with your insurance professional to find out. They'll give you the straight scoop. Then the other thing I get questions about are guarantee issue life insurance. These are the commercials you see on TV where a family's talking about somebody who died, but we sure were glad we bought this guaranteed life insurance, and they say the premiums will never go up. And I'm not going to mention any company names, but you see these commercials on TV. They usually have a limited benefit. Now, it's limited in two ways. Number one, limited dollar amount. The largest I've seen for any of these, sometimes called burial policies, is $35,000. And depending on your circumstance, you could find yourself paying premiums for 2 or 3 years and not have an actual life insurance benefit, but they'll return the premiums with what I recall as being a somewhat generous insurance rate. Now, if you make it past the 2 or 3 years, then you get the benefit you signed up for. They all vary. Every contract's different. Examine your contract carefully before you're committed. And because people who apply for these usually have a hard time getting policies, and there's no underwriting, they're generally the most expensive per unit of coverage of any of the types of life insurance. Things you should know about life insurance. Number one, when an agent gives you a quote, it is a best guess. The insurance company, after they've done whatever underwriting they plan on doing, they have the final say if they give you insurance, what it's going to cost. So your insurance could tell you one number, and the insurance company could come back with another number. When you're getting quoted for life insurance, there's 3 basic grades that influence the cost. You could be a standard risk, which means you may have a few problems, but they're not too serious. You could have what's called a rated risk, which means you got some problems, they're serious, but the insurance company will still give you insurance, but they'll charge you extra for it. And then there's preferred. That's where you're in good health, and they will give you a policy at a discount. Now, keep in mind, another thing you need to know is insurance companies all underwrite things differently. So there might be a dramatic difference in price between one policy and another. I'll give you a, for instance, years ago, I had a client sign up for a policy. I quoted him $600. We're going through the application. We get to the section on tobacco use. And I asked, well, hey, do you use any tobacco products? And he said, yeah, I have a cigar about every other month in celebration. And I said, okay. And the company I quoted him, they did not differentiate between a cigar every other month, 6 cigars a year, and 2 packs of Luckies a day. So that was going to drive his costs up to $2,000 per year. So I said, hang on, I'm going to, get a few more quotes, find somebody that recognizes the difference between those two situations. I found one. He ended up paying $700 a year. So most states have a free look period, meaning for a limited time, you can change your mind and get a full refund. That means in the state of New York, it's 10 days. So once I hand a policy over to a policyholder, they've got 10 days. And if they put a deposit down, they can say, here's your policy back. I want my money back. Now on putting some money up front with your application, another insurance friend of mine just a couple of days ago was telling me about this man who'd come in and he'd applied for a life insurance policy. And while they were doing the underwriting, they hadn't issued the policy yet, but he put a deposit down. And a few weeks later, his widow comes in, says, yeah, he died suddenly. And she was upset because she thought the family was going to be in serious trouble money-wise. And he says, no, under the circumstances, and this isn't the case in every case, but under the circumstances, the insurance company, because he put a deposit down, bound coverage, as it were, then they are going to pay the benefit. So he got to deliver the check to the grieving widow. It didn't, help emotionally, but at least they had the idea that they were, going to have some money to take care of his family. Okay, the other thing you need to know is there's usually a contestability period. This is basically a time where the insurance company can refuse to pay under certain limited and specific circumstances. I'm going to talk about New York. All states are a little bit different. Check with your insurance professional. But in the state of New York, for the first 2 years, if you did any misrepresentations on the application, like you forgot to tell them you had a particular disease or something like that, then if you die in the first 2 years, especially if it's from that disease, they can say, here are your premiums back and we're not paying the benefits. After 2 years, that goes away. Also, there's a suicide provision for that first 2 years. So if you commit suicide in the first 2 years of the policy, they don't pay. This is to keep people that are planning to kill themselves from taking out a large insurance policy to take care of their family and then doing the unthinkable. After 2 years, all bets are off. Okay, life insurance, it's said, will never get cheaper than it is right now, because as you get older, it's more likely you're going to die. So as such, the insurance company expects larger payments to cover their risk. Tobacco use generally makes the cost higher, not always, but frequently does. And men pay more than women for the same amount of life insurance. Basically, women live longer. A few suggestions. One rule of thumb is to buy enough insurance to replace your salary. Now, understand this is just a vague estimate. It does not take into account various life circumstances. Everyone has a different situation. A guy who is married with 3 children will likely have a different need than a guy who's has the same salary but's married with no children. A needs analysis, which any insurance agent will help you do, can help determine the appropriate amount for your situation. But what's even better, and I'll admit I'm a little biased because I help people with financial plans, a financial plan will help you zero in on that number even better, because it takes not only into account your present situation, but it takes into account possible future situations. Next step, consult your qualified advisor to determine you have enough life insurance for your situation. If you don't have a qualified advisor, feel free to contact me. I may be able to help. I am licensed in multiple states. There's no charge for the call. And if for some reason we get to chat and I'm not in your state, I can get a license to be licensed in your state pretty easily. How to contact me. Now, there's a few different ways. You can go to herwirefinancial.com. On every page of my website, there is a schedule appointment button in the upper right-hand corner. You can use that to schedule a Zoom appointment. You can use it to schedule a phone call. You can use it to schedule an in-person appointment. Now, if you've enjoyed this webinar, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's that button in between the LinkedIn and Facebook buttons, 2 buttons to the right of the schedule appointment button. If your friends want more information, or you do, you can follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Now, for those who are not very computer savvy, that's okay. I can be reached by phone at 518-631-2569. That's 518-631-2569. Okay, have a terrific weekend, and I'll see you next week, Friday at 12:45.